Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a quick heads up. The second Global Product Owner Summit is coming soon. You can get all the details at bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. That's bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. And it's all lowercase, all one word. Oh, and stick with us until the end of the episode to know the dates and the tracks that we have for you in this year's summit. But for now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Success Thursday, the big question of the week. This week with Dave Smith. Hey, Dave, welcome back.
Hey, Bosco. Nice to be back.
So we'll talk about success in a second. But to get us started, Dave, do share with us what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
So I don't think I have any real format. I mean, I've seen people talk about what's above the water, what's below the water, what moves the ship forward, what moves the ship backwards. And I think these are good techniques because you kind of think about, well, how many positives have we said then? How many negatives have we said? But what I like often in retros is for people to bring problems in, because these are things that are bugging them. I want to see passion and energy to come up with ideas, and I don't want to see just problems, but also what solutions could we have as well. Now, I don't know if you're aware of De Bono's 6 thinking hats, but I do like to have it, try and have a structure of, well, let's everybody talk about what could be the benefits of doing this if we could do it. Now, let's talk about what could be the downsides if it happens. Now, let's talk about what could be the barriers to actually happening, to try and structure where we're all in discussion and trying to focus on one particular goal. So we don't get, when we talk about the benefits, somebody's immediately come up with hurdles and barriers. Now, I also try and shift from what the problem is to what possible solutions are as soon as possible. So I want people to take ownership of that. So, okay, we're talking about a problem here, but let's suppose the problem didn't exist. What would the perfect picture look like? The problem is preventing us from getting to a certain destination. What is that destination? How can we get there? Are there any workarounds? Now, I also find in terms of a retro, bringing in outside people, such as people who attended the sprint review itself, is actually quite useful. Now, as I say, I do mentor in Scrum, but I don't teach it formally, but I do use it. I'm actually one of the stakeholders, and I work with some product owners or product managers, and I turned up to a sprint review accidentally. I think half an hour too early. I got the timings wrong. It was UK, EU times, and I happened to stumble into the sprint retro. So I said, I'm sorry about that, I'll leave. And one of the POs there said, no, wait a minute, why don't we ask somebody who actually attends the retro, attends the review? Now, it turns out it was their retro, and they said, okay, how do you think our reviews go? And my first immediate comment was, hold my beer. And this is when I went click, 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 go out to number 4. Now, I had a bit of a go at them because I said a lot of it begins with, these are the user stories we did, and this is the work we did. And I said, look, I'm attending here from the point of somebody's got to buy a product. You're talking all about the equipment you've got in the shed and the different challenges you had with building it. What I want to know is, does the damn product work? I don't want to know what kind of chefs the chef has. I don't want to know who made the equipment there. I want to know, is the meal tasty? So let's do away with all of this stuff to do with the stories. How about, here's what the new change is. Here's how it benefits people. This is the problem it solves. Because me as a trainer, when I'm looking at that, the big thing I've got in the back of my mind is, how do I add this to my training materials? And I can't add it to the training materials if I see a benefit. Otherwise, I'm teaching somebody how to use a tool, but they don't know why they're using the tool. The big question for me is, why is it there? So after that, they started to change some of their reviews to say, this is a problem that these people had. This is the old way of doing it, and now this is the new way of doing it. I thought, that's great, a comparison between the two. Now, admittedly, that was a way in which I influenced a retro, but I questioned, what was the format of the retro before? I mean, did they actually have external people coming in? And I know there's, I've seen a number of discussions on LinkedIn when they say, no, the retro is just for the team. I said, no, it's for the benefit of the team. But don't you think having somebody external coming in could actually help? Oh, no, if you've got managers there, then developers won't talk. They'll feel intimidated. Well, no, it's a cultural issue. Why do you think they will feel intimidated? And maybe some of the very changes you've got in the retro, these are people overhearing that think, I need to jump in and get involved in that. Now, I've been in a scenario of a change where somebody said to me, could we make a change to the following? Could we do this instead of that? And I looked at it, and it was a fairly small change. And I said, yeah, that's not a problem. Okay. And it took me, I think, half a day in order to make a process change. So this thing changed. I didn't realize that actually had a profound impact a huge improvement for other people. So sometimes we put up with another half an hour discomfort in order to save 2 hours worth of work for 20 people. That there's a huge returns on that. But if you don't see that bit, if you don't see why we're doing it, then we're not really invested in that change. And I think that is some of the problems with the retro, is that we think about what process change could we do to actually help us as a team, but is there anything that we could involve the external organization with the wider organization? Is there anything the wider organization could do with us? And I think that is something missing from many retros.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like the approach of taking a different perspective. And of course, you gave a concrete example, bring typical outsiders into the retrospective, get their feedback. But I would say even non-typical outsiders, like, for example, if we're developing a product, a non-typical outsider could be somebody from finance. And maybe, of course, Scrum Master would have a conversation here and there to figure out if they have an interest first, and then if they have something to contribute. But for example, somebody from finance may come into the team's retrospective and say, hey, we have a big problem every month, because in order to report, we have to go and reverse engineer the data you guys produce in order to be able to deliver billing to our clients. Would it be possible to tackle this, right? Like, and then we can talk about it. Maybe it's not possible, whatever, but like completely different perspectives. And we as Scrum Masters should be looking for those different perspectives, because it also creates new thinking, new brain patterns in the team, so that they can see the product from a different perspective, from a different person's perspective.
That's a key point. I went on a course of facilitation once many years ago, and what I learned was a facilitator is not the sage on the stage. They're actually the guide to the side. That was the key point they were saying. And they're saying about non-involvement. Now, something that came out of that session was that when it's a sales meeting, you get a non-salesperson to chair it. And I one time was picked for that. And my job was simply, this is an hour long. There are 6 topics to go through. Therefore, they've got 10 minutes on each topic, and they need to get to an agreement at the end of that 10 minutes. So we had an egg timer there. And whenever there was discussion going on, I actually raised the question, is this actually solving the problem? Is this us advancing us? So my job was simply to try and keep things on track and not get involved with it. Now, in the same way as when we had a technical meeting, one of the salespeople got involved and actually chaired the meeting. And as we were talking about some things there, she piped up and said, by the way, the reason why we have that is to find out whether we archived a course too early or not, if interest suddenly starts to pick up. So even though we're not delivering it, we're still asking people if there's interest in it. And I thought, I never thought of it that way. Of course, they were looking at it from a consumer and financial perspective, whereupon I was just looking at it from a delivery point. And that's when I realized when you start to get other people coming into the meeting, you start to get a much more rounded perspective. And I thought, maybe I've just been in this technical silo too much. I need to get out a bit more.
And they do happen, those technical silos, in every single industry. It's not just software. All right, now we turn our attention to success and what it means for Scrum Masters. And Dave, I'm especially curious because, of course, having trained and mentoring Scrum Masters, you probably have a very clear idea of what success for Scrum Masters mean in order to communicate that. So what is it?
I had an interesting chat about this with somebody when I said, a Scrum Master is a parent. You are growing your offspring so that they can leave out in the big wide world, and you want your young babies to suddenly become capable, mature, responsible young adults when they're by teens. So I think the success mark of a Scrum Master is a Nanny McPhee approach. It's about, you end up making yourself redundant. There's less dependency on you. You don't need to keep wiping their noses and getting them up for school in the morning if they could do it themselves. So if people within the team start to get a let's address this ourselves, we can do this, we don't need a Scrum Master, I think I've succeeded. If I start to back off and say less and less in a meeting to the point of, if I don't show up in the meeting, I'm not even missed, that tells me it's successful. I've grown the team into being self-organizing. Now,
when you think about that specific aspect, and you did mention the Nanny McPhee approach, which has a phrase, I don't know if you remember what it is. I'll look it up in a second and share it here. But there's this concept of, okay, but I must know when people are ready for me to let them go, because they will not know. It is not their job to know if I'm being successful and therefore preparing them to be mature and capable young adults, as you said a moment ago. So how do you advise the Scrum Masters you work with and the ones you mentor to look for, how to evaluate, maybe self-reflection? What do you give them in order for them to realize, yes, the team is at that stage now?
Right. So the Nanny McPhee approach is you want me, but you don't need me. And when I get to that stage, then I can leave. It's a Mary Poppins idea of, look, I'm not needed here anymore. Now, how do you get a team to that stage? There's a number of statements on this. One of them is if you're a Scrum Master and you're in the daily Scrum and you're talking the most, there's something wrong. Those kind of things. Similarly, there are people that say, I hate the fact that my Scrum Master never tells me anything. It just keeps asking questions. But I think that's the way forwards. There should be a way in which you come up with certain phrases, or you conduct yourself in that you don't give them answers, but you get them to start thinking about the answers themselves, and you start building a critical mindset in them. Now, ideally, you don't want the team, I mean, the failure part is that the team feel they can't do something in the absence of the coach. They keep turning to the coach for answers rather than considering it's something that they can handle. Now, I know one group I worked with, I wasn't there very long, but I was somebody who, well, I had the ego and the arrogance of thinking I'm a new guy here, so I can actually ask the embarrassing questions in the first 3 months of my tenure there. So when somebody did something and I said, well, why are we doing it that way? Is that really good for the customer? Don't you think it's a better way of doing that? I did put many people on the spot. It probably wasn't a very good way of doing it. But soon after I left that, I did talk to somebody who was still at the company, and they said, do you know that they still got WWDD written up? And I said, what's that? They said, what would Dave do? They actually say, when they're discussing this, says, what would Dave actually say in this point? He would say, get out of that room and go and talk to the customer. He said, well, why can't we do that? So I'd like to think that some of my lessons stuck. I know it's one of those, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. But coming back to the point of the team, I recall a phrase, I think from Ken Schwaber, who said, if he left the Scrum team and 18 months later, he returned to the team and the Scrum they were doing that day was the same as the Scrum he saw 18 months ago, he'd consider that a failure. And I think the same thing as well. I think when you start the team, you begin with quite a large amount of involvement, and your involvement begins to drop after a certain period of time. Now, it could be 6 months, it could be 18 months. And I think a common mistake is somebody new in a Scrum Master job may make the assumption that the team is new to Scrum. Maybe they're not. So it could take longer, it could take shorter. You need to bash out a lot of dysfunction. You need to try and get them to converge as a team. There's a whole pile of things to do. But I think if you walk in to a daily Scrum too late, you walk in 5 minutes after it started, and they're all discussing stuff, and you just stay there silently, and you don't do anything, and they don't even notice you there because they're so focused on trying to get this issue sorted, and you leave quietly, you think, that's me done. Now, that doesn't mean you'll completely leave the team. And you know that a Scrum team needs developers and a PO and an SM. If the SM disappears, it's no longer a Scrum team. But it doesn't necessarily mean the Scrum Master needs to be there all the time. They could move on to other things, but still be available if the team want to call them up once every couple of months or so. They're still going to be around. But I think the greater that the dependency has dropped on the Scrum Master tells me that the SM has actually built a good self-powered team.
So one thing that comes to mind for us to keep an eye and a finger on the pulse of the team's independence is to actually build some of the some related questions into our one-on-one discussions with the team member and with the team members. And one of the things that comes to my mind is encouraging that independence and at the same time validating that it is happening by asking something like, what do you think should have changed in the process by now? Or what would you like to change in the process by now? And that at the same time gives the clear leadership indication that it's your process and you need to own it and you need to change it, but not in a way that pushes people until they are ready, right? Because when people are ready, then they will answer that question with some concrete ideas. But if they don't have any ideas, that's also a sign that either everything is perfect, usually that's not the case, or people are not feeling that they have the authority or the permission to change their own process.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought about that. If you're asking people questions and they're struggling to come up with the answer, then they're not ready. If you ask people questions and they can immediately come up with answers and they start discussing stuff and suddenly they're chatting away and you think, I don't need to be here anymore, then you can see that they mature to the point that you don't need to ask the questions. They can self-reflect. They can ask the questions themselves. When I suppose if I happen to put a bug or a video camera in a retro and I just filmed it and I thought at no point are they missing me, then I think that's great. I've sorted it out for the team. They're asking their own questions.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Dave.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around and listening to the details of the Product Owner Summit, this year's global summit dedicated to a critical Scrum role, the Product Owner role, of course. We'll have some amazing keynotes and 4 tracks filled with first-hand stories and experiences for product owners to learn more about that critical Scrum role. The summit will take place between April 23rd and 25th, so book your calendars. There will be loads of sessions for you to attend. One of the keynotes will be Dave West, the product owner and CEO at Scrum.org, one of the largest Scrum organizations in the world. If you want to know more, check out the details at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all one word, all lowercase, bit.ly/product owner 2024. We will also have 4 tracks. The 4 tracks will cover cross-functional product ownership. That's track 1. As Pixar's Ratatouille said, not every idea can be a great idea, but a great idea can come from anywhere. And this quote emphasizes the importance of a product owner being open to all ideas, regardless of the source, and also challenges us to focus on getting good ideas from everywhere and involving the whole team in the product owner role and responsibilities. The second track is Designing Products for Growth, where we explore how to craft products ready for scalable growth, merging practical strategies with innovation. The idea here is to learn to design products for growth, whether it is sales or customer acquisition. The third track is Know Your Users, user-centric approaches for agile development. In this track, we learn to master user-centric techniques in agile development, to deeply understand customer needs and transform insights into meaningful UX designs that focus on engagement and satisfaction. This is a track ideal for innovation-focused agile teams. And the fourth track, one of the most exciting tracks in my opinion, is product development with AI, ideas for product owners. Not only do we discuss about using AI in the products, but also AI for product owners to learn to make a bigger impact with the help of the AI tools that we already have. The Product Owner Summit will also present to you great opportunities to network with your peers. So get your ticket and join our Slack. You can get the ticket and join the Slack at bit.ly/product owner 2024. As always, we have free tickets and also the paid tickets that help to support this podcast. So check them out at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all lowercase, all one word, product owner 2024. I'll see you in the summit floor.